Hello. I was writing today, and I'm just going to keep talking as whether people check in or they don't check in. I'm going to save this so people can watch it later, but I was writing today. I was writing today about this notion of holding space. And we hear this so much in the community, this spiritual community, right? And I say that in quotations, not to be, it's about holding space. We hear this all the time about holding space. And it seems like such a vague term or a vague phrase to sort of throw out there at people without speaking about what that even really means and what that what that implies about how we interact with people and what normally actually really happens when we meet people who are going through pain or going through a loss, right? I think, or what I have witnessed even in my own experiences, right, is that so often we rush into this place of doing, right? We feel like we want to save someone from that pain, or we have these anecdotes to offer, right, to sort of alleviate their experience, to try to help them make sense of it, right? When really there's nothing to do other than being, right? When faced with pain, whether it's physical or something like death, that's something I can speak to from my own experience of losing my mom very abruptly, right? We try to save others from their own experience, and really it's about becoming the kind of environment that pain can be felt, right, from start to finish. It's not about actually alleviating or saving anybody from anything, right? What I wrote today was, there is nothing to do other than being when faced with pain, whether physical or death. So often we rush into doing to save ourselves or others. And in those moments, we retract the space. So when we're talking about creating space, but we rush into a place of doing to try to save somebody, we actually contract the space and make it smaller for that pain to even exist and be transmuted through. We actually sort of rid that person of the room to move through that feeling, that experience, and what needs to be gone through. And why would we want to rid somebody of that, right? When you think of so many of the things that you've been through, your most painful experiences, didn't they make you stronger? Didn't they make your light shine brighter? Didn't they make you who you are today? Why would you want to rid somebody of like the opportunity to do that? It's much more about becoming an environment within yourself, right? Like one of someone I dearly love, Michel Pascal, he often talks about the greatest thing that we can offer others is our own calm, our own centeredness. That's the greatest thing that we can offer somebody. And that's, I think, what it means to become the environment in which other people, right, can move through what they're experiencing. So I'll read more of what I wrote. So often we rush into doing to save ourselves or others. And in those moments, we contract the space necessary for revelation, for distance, and room for change and rebirth to happen, for a meeting of the inner light to shine that much brighter. And what I mean by that is when we have a feeling, even within ourselves, see, we have to experience it ourselves in order to be able to do that for others. We cannot offer what we don't already embody, right? And we know, we hear all this stuff, right? It's nothing sort of new that I'm saying in that respect, I don't think. Right? It's like when we are having a particular feeling, there's an awareness. If we can get aware of the feeling, then we're less engulfed in it. We less embody it. We can be like, okay, I'm aware that I'm having this particular feeling right now. And we can turn and face it as almost as if it's outside of ourselves. So then we're no longer identifying with the pain. We're witnessing it, right? It's once again sort of becoming the witness. And this is how we sort of take the first steps into creating an environment in which pain can just be what it is, right? And be transmuted. So I go on to write, we rush into doing instead. We meet pain with our fear. And when I say that, meeting pain with our fear, part of our fear sometimes is not wanting that other person to feel pain. Not wanting that other person to feel fear, right? Like I did that with my mom. Now that I can reflect on it, meeting my mother's pain as she was nearing the end of her life and meeting her fear, right? Her human fear of coming to end of life. I met her pain and fear with my own fear instead of allowing myself to be in an environment where that pain and fear could have her move through her own life, full life, having a full life experience. Instead, I allowed myself to want to save her from that, right? They asked, oh, should we wake her up? Because she was on life support at the end. And I knew that she was afraid. I said, no, just let her sleep. So in a sense, I robbed her of the opportunity to face death in its very final moments because I was afraid of her being afraid. I was trying to save her. It was creating pain in me for her to have pain and be afraid of having those final moments. But I cannot die for her. I cannot live her pain for her. Right? That was a part of her own destiny. And I allowed my own fear and wanting to save that situation to guide my actions. And I think I've learned to do that less and less now. And that's why I'm sort of having this conversation, right? So I go on to write, we meet pain with our fear, perhaps fear of the unknown, something like death. Right? But what is the unknown other than just what has not been defined? It is only scary or fearful because we project onto the unknown something that is in our imagination. So the unknown, if we just look at it for what it is, it's just the unknown. It's a blankness. It's a nothingness. But we project onto that whatever our own internal fears are of what an unknown could possibly mean. And the mind does what it does. It creates scenarios, it creates things. It may be based on our philosophies through life, a whole bunch of things, right? And we project that onto the unknown, which only thus creates more fear, more suffering about something that is essentially not that hard to actually pass through if we only surrender to it and make space for it to exist. Make space. That's what this conversation is about, right? So I say it is only scary or fearful because we project onto the unknown something that is in our imagination. So in this moment, and this goes for all of you who are either watching or will be watching this, whatever is causing you pain, whatever pain is being met with fear, whether your own or from others, who wish to save you from that pain, or you wanting to save others from that pain. Let's create that space, right? It's about allowing or inviting yourself, rather, to become the environment, right? The environment in which that pain or fear can evolve, can transform. Again, why rob ourselves or others of this deeper experience of a full presence? Cease doing. It's about being, right? The answers do not come in doing, they come in being, in witnessing, in allowing. Right? So when we can allow ourselves to become the environment in which pain, grief can exist, right? This is becoming the environment is the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and others. It's our calmness, our centeredness, our expansiveness. It's not about doing anything, right? So this is what I say. From being the environment, this is the greatest gift we can give ourselves and others. It is the calmness. It is the non-reactivity. So often to our own pain or others, we become reactive. We want to do something. We move and rush into a state of doing. Right? It is the absence of lightning and fire in a moment that calls for soft breeze. Be the soft breeze. Be the open sky. Right? I learned this by trying to save my mother from the fear of dying, which I mentioned before. From the unknown of death. Choosing fear over faith. Whatever your faith is. I'm not speaking in religious terms here, right? But choosing doing over being. Projecting my own fear onto her fear, her pain. And since then have had a mirror held to me so that I might find the path to becoming the environment, right? And that's what I invite you all to do with this conversation, is to reflect on ways and how we can become the environment for pain to be transmuted, right? The path to becoming the environment, to becoming, to being, to be. We're human beings, not human doings, right? So we're already working against our own nature by rushing to do. So I say something in us dies during the greatest times of pain, but in that death, a new us is also born. And when we rush into doing and trying to save somebody from a particular pain or situation, we almost rob them of the rebirth. We almost rob them of the opportunity to find the new, more electrifying, more fully lived, more fully embodied version of themselves that perhaps that situation is calling them to be, is providing the framework, the catalyst for them to be that, right? And I also say that, and wrote earlier, that our ability to be the environment for another's pain, fear, for their heart, and I often say this, is a direct reflection of our ability to be that environment for ourselves. So if we notice that other people contract from us or close off to us, where are we closing off to ourselves and to others? I'll ask that again. So if we notice others are closing off to us or retracting or contracting, where in our lives, whether with them or otherwise, just where in our lives are we also contracting and closing off, right? Our ability to hold space, hold space, this term, right? Our ability to do that for others is a direct reflection in how we operate within our own feelings and how we become that environment, even for ourselves. So if others, when someone closes their heart to you or closes their energy to you or are afraid, do you remain open or do you close off? Do you remain open or do you close off? These are some things that we can start to ask ourselves, right? It's the awareness is the first step. I always say that, like awareness is the first step into changing our relationship to all emotion and all experiences, right? It's first the awareness of it, right? I'm aware that I'm having this feeling. Okay. And it's information then, and becomes less that I am that emotion and I am that experience, right? Now I can look at it more as information, and then I can turn towards that situation, that feeling from a much more empowered state and choose empowerment, right? Which eventually will lead to growth and a lighting up of the soul, right? So I wrote that, like, when someone closes their heart or is afraid, can we remain open? Practice this as many times as you need. It's almost like a muscle. It's not something that just click. That's my cat running back and forth. It's not something that just clicks and then it happens right away, right? The act of becoming the environment within oneself is something that is learned through your own experience, and that we constantly sort of have to move through. It's almost like working out, right? You work your biceps, you're working your emotional body, right? Through working with a sense of awareness and practicing keeping an open heart for yourself and for others, and keeping a sense of centeredness and becoming the environment. So I go on to write, and forgive me if I pause. It's just when I'm writing these sort of messages to myself, my handwriting can be not as great as it normally is. But anyway, the awareness of all feeling is the first step to creating that soul-called space, that environment. The next step is exploring it. So it's a call for exploration, right? Meeting it, facing it without turning away, right? And then the transformation occurs, right? It begins to occur. The garden begins to grow. The environment begins to bloom, right? No longer are we creating barren deserts within ourselves that are dry, right? But rather we create lush gardens within ourselves that is also a restful place for others to be. And it's simply a state of being that we've met within ourselves, right? But we first have to create that feeling in ourselves. Okay, and we do that through working on our own state of calm, being calm. And how do we do that? Right? That's another question. How do we do that? We hear all these tips and tricks that the spiritual community is putting out there, and as my dear friend Michelle says, like, the human mind is capable of 3 seconds of attention. So all of these things that require people to take a breath count of this and do this, and you're only giving people more things to sort of think about, right? Which sort of, in my opinion, moves them sort of out of the present, right? It's literally just being aware of, like, okay, this is what's happening right now. Okay. And like leaning into it, right? Meditation is 100% essential. I think it certainly helped me with doing that. And if you're not already aware, I have a link in my bio to a bunch of guided meditations on my YouTube that you can subscribe to and listen to. There's also sound baths on there, hour-long ones that you are welcome to use, and that's all for free. if you don't already sort of have your own practice. But this is the point of my conversation today, is how do we become the environment? When we talk about holding space, instead of just using this sort of spiritual community jargon of holding space, right? Like, can we talk about how we get to that point of being the space? What does the space even mean, right? It's all a transmission of energy. So we have to create that energy within ourselves. And so often I've seen this, right? When people are grieving or have lost a lost one, we want to say, oh, but everything happens for a reason, but they're still with you. But this not, like, we're not actually being the environment for that grief to exist and to evolve, right? There's nothing to say in those moments other than to just be. Remember I said we're human beings, not human doings. And so often we rush into doing, into saying, right? We love to hear ourselves talk for no reason half the time, to be honest with you, right? And I've been guilty of the same thing. So it's absolutely no judgment. I just want each of you, I invite you all to explore what it means to be the environment. And what kind of environment have you cultivated within yourself? Are you that environment? And if not, that's okay, right? It just means that there's work to do in how we even relate to our own emotions, right? So less doing, right? When people are experiencing grief or pain, there's less doing. There's more becoming the environment in which people can have their own experience and transmute it and grow and flourish, even if that means an end of life. There's a profound experience in that we cannot have for them. We have to stop trying to have people's experiences for them or save them from the experience. We're robbing them of an incredible opportunity for growth and meeting themselves more deeply, so that they then too can become the environment for others, right? So with that, I will leave you all with just the invitation to reflect on where can you all become more the environment? How deeply are you able to meet your own emotions? Right? How deeply can you meet your own emotions? And if you can't, then you can't possibly do that for another. We cannot be what we don't already offer ourselves, right? We have to be that which we want, what we want to experience through others. So less doing, less rushing to do, less rushing to save others from an experience, but more becoming the environment through which other people can keep their hearts open to move through whatever that experience is calling them to move through. But we first have to be willing to do that for ourselves. So with that, have a beautiful evening. And if you missed this, please watch it back and let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment and maybe what this brought up for you, or experience that you had that maybe others could learn from as well, just as I did during this live with the passing of my mom and my inability at the time, even though I thought I was, right? And how that has expanded since then in my own reflection. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. And I love you all. And I wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful evening, wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace out.